Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 6 of NaPoWriMo 30 Poems in 30 Days. I'm back, Nancy Lynée Wu, with Surprise the Line to give you another prompt here. Um, mm, we're almost done with week 1. Can you believe it if you are playing along? It's funny because I am realizing I'm getting the hang of these videos. So thanks for being here. I'm going to go ahead and get started with today's inspiration poem, and then I'll have some things to say after the prompt. So today, I'd like to share a poem by Charles Bukowski. Yep, Henry Chinaski, uh, called Bluebird. Okay, so here we go. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too tough for him. I say, stay in there. I'm not going to let anybody see you. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I pour whiskey on him and inhale cigarette smoke, and the whores and the bartenders and the grocery clerks never know that he's in there. There's a blue bird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too tough for him, I say. Stay down. Do you want to mess me up? You want to screw up the works? You want to blow my book sales in Europe? There's a blue bird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too clever. I only let him out at night sometimes when everybody's asleep. I say, I know that you're there, so don't be sad. Then I put him back, but he's singing a little in there. I haven't quite let him die. And we sleep together like that with our secret pact. And it's nice enough to make a man weep, but I don't weep. Do you? Okay. So you may have mixed feelings about Charles Bukowski, and I certainly do. But I am gonna tell you more about what I think at the end. But before we do that, whether you have any whether you have any experience with Charles Bukowski or not, I just want us to look at this poem. Okay. So, thinking about Bluebird by Charles Bukowski, the first thing that I want to bring your attention to, after we read this quick mantra as we get into writing today. So, welcoming you to this space wherever you are today. Just a quick invitation to hear these words in your head before you begin to write. I am here and present with my experiences. I am grounded and open. I have unlimited access to the infinite flow of creativity always around me. Whatever happens on these pages today is what's meant to happen. I'm not judging myself or my writing. I'm just writing. I have everything I need to begin already inside of me. I'm settling in and I'm ready to write. All right. Thank you. So, just to set the space, letting go of all of the judgment that we may be bringing into ourselves, to other people, to writing that we experience. There's a lot of judgment just in humanity. So, let's just take a moment to let that go and think about where you are today. Tune in to your heart. Okay, so you might want to pause the video before you get writing and just do a little meditation if that's a practice for you, some kind of breathing, but just tune into your body. Take a moment, feel into your heart, your spirit, or whatever you call it. We all have these electrical impulses called emotions flowing through our body all the time. And where is your electrical impulse of emotion in your body today? or your spirit or your heart, wherever you want to bring your attention or your mind. But take a few minutes to tap in, be present, and free write into your emotional experience as it is right now. And in your free write, you might want to be thinking about what's locked away or what's hiding from you or the world or what's secret inside of you right now, today. Or if there's nothing, maybe what has been hiding or secret in your heart in previous times. So, take a few moments, really give yourself enough time and get very present and just free write into where you are today and then come back. Okay, so I hope that exercise was nice and introspective for you. Next, thinking about where your emotional state is today, let's bring an image into it. So think about filling in this blank, modeling after Bluebird. Think about how you might characterize what lives inside you today. What if it were an animal or a plant or an object or an event? It could be anything, but fill in the blank. There's a blank in my heart or in my mind or my soul, body, whatever you want to do. You can play with it and then come back. You can actually make a few of those if you want. You don't have to just have one. Like whatever comes to mind, jot it down. You can figure out which one you want to work with. Okay, step 3, welcome back. Now, thinking about there's a blank in your heart, um, just write down a few descriptors for whatever that is. If it's bluebird, blue, chirping, cage, just like things that are associated with that word. So, sensory imagery, verbs, characteristics. Take a few moments just to do that. All right, bringing it all home. So this prompt today, as you saw the poem, it's a very pretty simple poem, as in it's written very simply, but the strength in it, I think, is the metaphor, the conceit, the idea of tenderness of this little bluebird in the heart. But yours could be anything. It could be any emotion. For me, I don't know. I'm feeling like a lot of. Mine was like, oh, there's like a ticking, there's like a bomb. It's very different from a bluebird. But whatever it is for you, write it can be a simple poem. It can be simple, can be short. This one can be kind of quick today if you wanted, or it could be as long as you want. But write a poem about the idea that there is a blank in your blank, heart, mind, body, soul, spirit, whatever. So just think about drawing this image out. What is it doing there? How did it get there? What happens if you were to, pull open your skin across your heart and you would look at it? What is it doing in there? What's your relationship to it? Do you feed it? Do you neglect it? And what would happen if it were to be released or something else? I don't know what would happen. So thinking about this metaphorical image, what does it reveal about you? So with Charles Bukowski, I think the bluebird really reveals a secret tenderness within masculinity. So think about what it is for you and set however long you want to sit and write. And happy writing, and feel free to let me know how it goes. And then come back if you'd like to hear a little bit about Bukowski. All right. Well, hope everyone had a good writing time. I chose this poem as one of my primary influences because I will be very honest with you. When I was around 16, 17, that's when I first started reading poetry. I actually started writing poetry before I started reading it. I started writing earlier, but in high school, that's when I started to read through my English classes. And so unlike Adrienne Rich, who was assigned to me in an English class, I came across Charles Bukowski wandering around a Barnes and Noble. I remember picking up books. I opened one And the way that his poems cascade down the page are very short lines, sometimes one words, very simple language. And it just struck me. Being a teenager and really wanting someone to tell me like what's real about the world and not necessarily couch it in all of these, flowery niceties, right? I was really hungry for someone to just tell it like it is, no bullshit. And let me tell you, that's what I found in Charles Bukowski. Okay, so Charles Bukowski was born in 1920 in Germany. He came over to the United States when he was 2 years old, died in 1994. Okay, so he has a very strong reputation in the literary world, for being a drunk and a gambler, all focused on sex and drugs and music and, this kind of lowbrow, dark alleyway, kind of gritty, down and out, working class, um, violent themes. And that was his life. So he he was an alcoholic and he was a gambler and he, went to the brothels and had kind of a hard life, like hard living. He did the hard living thing. It wasn't a front, it was his actual experience in life. He actually took 10 years off of writing before he got really, famous. Before he got famous, he took 10 years and he just wandered around the country being basically a vagabond alcoholic. And, it's interesting talking about Charles Bukowski in today's age of rising consciousness, let's say, and toxic masculinity and feminism. So, thinking about actually, I'm thinking about this class I took in college called, around the idea of literary authorship. What is more important, the author as a person or the work that has been authored and is now out in the world? I don't know if I have an answer still. I just do know that Bukowski can be an controversial figure for people who are not about him and his violence and his, quite frankly, toxic masculinity. And I totally get that. I watched a video of him in high school, of him drunk off his rocker, just yelling and kicking at this poor young girl and just abusive. So he was abusive, okay? I'm not gonna downplay that. I'm not gonna condone that. But I am also going to position my relationship to his work as understanding that he was influential to me. And his work really did give me, as a teenager, that sense that somebody was telling the truth. It might not have been a pretty truth, and it might have actually been a difficult, ugly, nasty truth, but it was real. And that's one of the things that I think really appeals about Charles Bukowski is that okay, so I'm going to start reading some quotes about what people have said about him. Obviously, I'm going to quote my sources in the description, but it has been said he wrote of a desolate, abandoned world, and his readership was the defeated, the demented, and the damned. And the mixture of boast and complaint mirrors the coyness of his poetry, so which is both misanthropic and comradely, aggressively vulgar, and clandestinely sensitive. So it's that part that I really pick up on. There's a tension in Bukowski's work. He's both aggressively vulgar and secretly sensitive. And I do think that's what this poem, Bluebird, shows to me. It shows the sensitive, tender spot inside the poet. Because keep in mind, okay, he was all these gritty things. He was also a poet. How do you become a poet without having a deep experience with the world and emotions and language? So that always fascinated me. Um, you know, it feels honest. And I picked up on that as a child, that it was honest. And, here's another quote saying that his work is less a celebration of self destruction. So he's not celebrating self destruction, but it's an honest self portraiture, and that reveals his ugliness as an outsider on the verge of respectability. And the fact that this poetry made it into the literary canon and he became super famous, I think says something about, like, maybe our readership's need for someone to cut the bullshit. Let's just get real about things. And he actually had a lot of work published posthumously. And thinking about how much work he did produce, he wrote over 40 books of poetry, prose, and novels. I read a couple of his novels, but before that, he actually started by getting published with some underground small presses and sort of just spread word of mouth. And with all of this writing that he did, and he always came back to it despite all of his hard life struggles, and he was a writer. You think about what makes a writer. A writer is someone who writes. I learned that in an Amherst International Writers Workshop. And that to me is impressive. Like, whatever your life experience, write honestly, write truly. It doesn't have to be pretty. I think that's what Bukowski has taught me. Your writing does not have to be pretty. It can be ugly, but it can also still be impactful. Like, you can write things as you see them without sugarcoating it. And sometimes that is a breath of fresh air, even if you're writing about things that are difficult that people don't want to look at. And I think there's a difference from condoning a behavior and simply looking at it, because I don't think we can deny that alcoholism exists. Okay. Gambling exists. Like, dark bars at night with lots of things happening in those dark bars, that exists. So why would that be off the table for a poet to write about? And as long as I think it's not necessarily in this condoning celebration way, but in an honest, true way. I mean, so like I said, I think there's a difference between looking at something and perpetuating it. For me as a reader, Bukowski is a poet who helped me learn how to look at some of the uglier facets of human nature head on, directly. His style is direct, it's just straight to the point, yet there's all sorts of poetic techniques that he uses, which is actually pretty impressive, with the colloquial conversational nature of his poetry still having that emotional resonance, not in every poem, okay, but like a lot of them, and some kind of cleverness or some kind of wit, some kind of conversational language, like he's just sitting there talking to you. And that's a style that I I mean, I think a lot of poets have done that. And but in his era, in his day, I think he was pretty revolutionary in that respect. um Kind of like a response to the hyper commercialism. And that's just me speculating, but another critic has said his writing is bargain basement existentialist charm. Oh, I love that. It's bargain basement existentialist charm. So good, because there's a very smart vein of observation in Bukowski's work. Um, so anyway, Bukowski definitely influenced me. I read a lot of him as a child, basically. And I know that it's controversial. I don't condone behavior of abuse or violence, um, but I don't deny that it is a part of the human experience. And especially being with someone, I've had experiences with people who are, you know, addicts and struggle with that. It's very real. Violence, domestic violence, it's very real. And I do want to say that I appreciate the conversation that Bukowski's work starts, even for someone like me who's a radical feminist, to be thinking about, well, how does toxic masculinity affect men? Because I do not think Bukowski was a very happy person. I do not think, I mean, he was beat by his father as a child, rejected by girls as a young adult, um, clearly an alcoholic. And I mean, alcoholism is rampant in our society, so let's talk about it. Let's be real about it. It's anyway, let's not even, I'm not even going to go down that route. There's so much more I could say about that. But whatever your experience with Bukowski is, I just will share that for me as a reader, he did open the door. He was my gateway poet. So while Adrienne Rich was so cerebral and intellectual, and I had a difficult time accessing her as a 16-year-old, I did not need to have read any single poem. Like, I did not have to be well read, and I wasn't at 16 to enjoy Charles Bukowski. And so, in that way, I think Bukowski and his style have opened poetry for a lot of people. And for me as a teenager, I definitely was introduced to the power of poetry through his straightforward and direct style of writing that immediately captured my attention. Um, and so that's what I'll say about Bukowski. And I hope you enjoyed this writing exercise. Thanks for being here, everyone. See you tomorrow.